You know, Rome is 1,700 kilometers from here. Straight line, guys. And they're building the Colosseum. People going absolutely crazy in the stands. The empire at its peak, man. And at the same time, 1,700 kilometers north of all that. 5,000 soldiers just disappeared from the map. No trace, nothing, no explanation, no goodbye. Come with me, guys. Let's find out what happened. So, in 108 Anno Domini, 5,000 Roman soldiers carved an inscription into the gates of York, and then vanished, forever. Rome kept receipts for soldiers' socks, logged requests for beer, filed records of minor punishments. An empire that documented everything simply stopped mentioning an entire legion. No transfer orders, no battle reports, no funeral monuments. 3 theories try to explain what happened. One says they were wiped out in a rebellion in northern Britain. Another, that they were transferred east and destroyed in a different war. The third suggests something Rome did when it wanted no explanations. It erased them. But here is the detail that changes everything. Former soldiers of the Ninth appeared decades later, living normal lives, buried with honor, carrying no mark of shame. What does that mean for each of the 3 theories? Before we continue, had you ever heard of the Ninth Legion? Comment below. Which of the 3 theories seems most likely to you before you see the evidence? Come back later and see if you change your mind. Who the Ninth was before it disappeared. Before we talk about the disappearance, you need to understand the size of what disappeared. The Ninth Legion was not just another unit. Think of it as a military franchise, an institution with over a century of history, before it ever set foot on the island that would become the stage for its end. It was born during the Roman Republic, linked to Julius Caesar's campaigns in the Gallic Wars, starting in 58 before Christ. These men were with Caesar in the worst battles of the Gallic conquest, including the legendary Siege of Alesia in 52 before Christ, where they helped crush the Gallic leader Vercingetorix. Caesar himself, in his commentaries on the Gallic War, praised the discipline of his veteran legions. He wrote that rigorous training allowed his men to fight in conditions that would destroy ordinary armies. After Caesar's death, the legion was reformed under Octavian and remained active through the civil wars that tore Rome apart. It earned the name Hispana, the Spanish, after the Cantabrian Wars in the mountains of the Iberian Peninsula, around 25 before Christ, when the first emperor Augustus sent them into those bloody campaigns. It was not a sentimental nickname, it was a service record. In 43 Anno Domini, under Emperor Claudius, the Ninth was chosen as one of 4 legions to invade Britain. For the Romans of that time, the English Channel was the edge of the known world, a land of fog, inhabited by fierce warriors. The Ninth landed as a shock force. While other legions pushed west and inland, the Ninth drove up the eastern coast, securing the frontier, making sure the Brigantes, a massive tribal confederation controlling everything from southern Yorkshire to the Scottish border, stayed out of conflict with Rome. It was a strategic role, no direct glory, but without the Ninth holding the northern flank, the rest of the conquest would not have been possible. In 71 Anno Domini, under Governor Petilius Carialis, the Ninth founded the fortress of Eboracum, the city we now call York. Built first in earth and timber, later rebuilt in stone, it would become the backbone of Rome's presence in the north of the island. This is where Lucius Ducius Rufinus enters the story. His face is carved into a gravestone found in York, now in the Yorkshire Museum. A standard bearer of the Ninth Legion, probably one of the first soldiers stationed there, one of the founders of the city. A real name, a real face, one of the first people to call York home. But the Ninth story was not a sequence of victories. There was an open wound in the Legion's record, and it had a name, Boudica. In 61 Anno Domini, Queen Boudica led the largest rebellion Britain had ever seen. The Romans had seized Iceni lands, publicly flogged the queen, and violated her daughters. The result was a furious Celtic army, marching to destroy everything Roman. The Ninth, based in Lincoln, was the first to try to stop the advance. Carialis gathered around 2,000 men, less than half the legion, and marched in haste with the conviction that no barbarian force could face the elite of Rome. He underestimated the hatred of the Britons. Before even reaching their objective, the Ninth was violently ambushed. The entire infantry, the backbone of the legion, was annihilated. Carialis and his cavalry managed to break through and take refuge in a fort, locked inside in complete despair. Caesar's elite force humiliated in a single day. Emperor Nero had to rush 2,000 recruits and Germanic legionaries to rebuild the unit from scratch. The Ninth was destroyed by Boudica and rebuilt from zero. Would you have gone back to serve in a legion with that history? Comment, would you have trusted the Ninth after that? The Ninth survived. It was rebuilt, and it returned to the field. Around 82 and 83 Anno Domini, Governor Agricola decided that holding the frontier was not enough. He wanted to conquer the entire island. He pointed north toward Caledonia, modern Scotland, and gave the order to march. The Ninth was called to lead the advance. What it found was a nightmare. Steep mountains, treacherous marshes, freezing rain, and a fog that seemed to swallow armies whole. The Caledonians knew that facing Rome in open battle was suicide, so they chose another tactic. Attacks on supply lines, quick ambushes, vanishing into the mist before any legionary could strike back. On one night in 82, Anno Domini, while the Ninth was camped apart from the other units, and according to Tacitus, was the most weakened force in the army at that moment. The Caledonians attacked by surprise. They killed the sentries in the dark and stormed the camp while the soldiers slept. Tents in flames, screams in the darkness, enemy warriors moving between the barracks. The Ninth was only saved because Agricola received warning in time and sent his cavalry to attack from the rear at dawn. The legion survived, but the message was clear. The North would not be easily conquered. One important note, Tacitus was Agricola's son-in-law. His account is flattering, possibly exaggerated, and archaeologists are direct about this. There is no physical evidence of this attack, no battlefield, no Roman bones, no fire damage in the camp structures. The text says only a few people died. What Tacitus described as a near massacre may have been a smaller raid, dramatized to glorify his father-in-law's intervention. What is fact is what comes next. The mystery, the silence begins, and the three theories. After Agricola's campaigns in Caledonia, the Ninth returned to its base at Eboracum, York, and this is where we have the last official record of this legion. In 108 Anno Domini, soldiers of the Ninth rebuilt the fortress gates in stone and fixed a commemorative plaque dedicated to Emperor Trajan. That inscription was found by archaeologists centuries later. It is now in the Yorkshire Museum. The text is mundane, a list of the emperor's titles, the legion's name on the last line. But the titles are too precise to be ignored. They allow the inscription to be dated exactly to the period between December 107 and December 108 Anno Domini. This stone slab is the last confirmed physical trace of the Ninth Legion. After that, the silence is absolute. To understand the weight of that silence, you need context. Rome was the greatest bureaucratic apparatus of the ancient world. We have papyri recording receipts for soldiers' socks, beer requests, minor punishment reports, rank transfers. If Rome recorded all of that, the disappearance of 5,000 men, without a single transfer order, a combat report, or a funeral monument, is not an administrative accident. It is an anomaly that demands an explanation. Around 120 to 122 Anno Domini, the 6th Victrix Legion arrived in York from the Rhine to occupy the fortress. The fortress could not hold two legions at the same time. That means when the 6th arrived, the 9th had already gone. Where? Nobody knows. In 122 Anno Domini, Emperor Hadrian visited Britain and ordered the construction of the famous wall that bears his name. 3 legions took part in the construction: the 2nd, the 6th, and the 20th. Every unit that touched a stone block of that wall left inscriptions, graffiti, official markings. The 9th is not among them. And in 168 Anno Domini, a column erected in Rome listed all active legions in the empire. The 9th is not on it, absent from the wall, absent from the list, absent from history. The debate over what happened has lasted centuries and divides essentially into three theories, each with real evidence, each with real contradictions. Three theories, which would you choose before hearing the evidence? Vote in the poll. After hearing all three, see if you switch sides. Theory 1, destruction in Britain. It was German historian Theodor Mommsen who formalized this hypothesis in the 1850s, and it remains the most probable according to a significant part of today's scholarship. The idea is that between 108 and 122 Anno Domini, the Ninth faced a rebellion in the north, possibly from the Brigantes, the tribal confederation that was never fully Romanized, or from tribes in Caledonia, and was destroyed. The context strengthens the argument. When Hadrian took power after Trajan's death in 117, he inherited a Britain in crisis. Senator Cornelius Fronto, writing 2 generations later, recorded that large numbers of soldiers were killed by the Britons. Place that next to the known instability of the northern region, and the scenario begins to make sense. A 2021 paper by researcher Nick Hodgson, published by Cambridge, concludes that the destruction in Britain hypothesis is still the most sustainable. The argument is direct. If the Ninth had left Britain intact to serve on another frontier, there would be material traces of it elsewhere. Stamped tiles, altars, soldiers' inscriptions. In all the Roman archaeology outside Britain, there is only one site with evidence of the Ninth, and that site is where the second theory lives. Theory 2, transfer to the continent and death in the east. In Nijmegen, in the modern-day Netherlands, the Roman fort of Noviomagus, tiles stamped with the mark of the 9th Legion Hispana were found, along with a bronze pendant bearing the legion's inscription. Archaeological dating places these objects between 104 and 120 Anno Domini, after the last record in York, and potentially after the moment the Ninth would have been destroyed in Britain. Historian Eric Burley argued that this proves the Ninth was transferred to Nijmegen and later sent east, possibly to the brutal Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea between 132 and 135 Anno Domini, or to the war against the Parthians in 161. The careers of officers like Lucius Aemilius Carus and Lucius Novius Crispinus, who served in the Ninth and appear alive in records from the 130s to 150s, suggest that part of the legion still existed after 120. But the central problem remains. Archaeology has not yet resolved whether the Nijmegen material proves the presence of the full legion, or only of a vexillatio, a detachment. And that difference matters. A battalion stationed on the Rhine is one thing. The entire legion having survived Britain and migrated east is something else entirely. The absence of any other Roman fort in the empire with evidence of the Ninth is the problem with this theory. If they are in forts and building things, they are stamping tiles, and we have no evidence of that anywhere else. Theory 3, dissolution through disgrace. Rome had an extreme punishment for legions that surrendered or committed acts of cowardice. Total dissolution, with the number and name erased from all records, survivors scattered into other units. If the Ninth was surrounded and surrendered, or abandoned the Sacred Eagle standard, the emperor would simply unmake it. No ceremony, no record, no honor. That would explain the absolute silence, without requiring a massacre. But there is an important counter-argument. Former soldiers of the Ninth appear in later records, living apparently normal lives, decades after the legion's disappearance. That is inconsistent with a full disgrace dissolution. In that case, the survivors would have carried the shame forever. The fact that they lived, were buried with honor, and carry no visible stigma, suggests the legion was not erased for cowardice. 3 theories, no definitive proof. The debate is open, and to understand why, it is enough to know that 2 of the 4 legionary headquarters on the eastern frontier of the empire are today submerged under modern dams. A single tile stamped with the mark of the 9th Legion Hispana, found in Judea or on the Danube, would change everything. Now you know all 3 theories. Did you change your mind from your vote at the beginning? What detail convinced you the most, or left you most uncertain? Tell us in the comments. If a single tile stamped LEG 9th HISP were found in Judea today, it would rewrite everything you just heard. Does that unsettle you or fascinate you? Tell me in the comments. Conclusion. What we know, what we don't, and what it means. So, what do we know for certain? We know the 9th Legion Hispana existed. It served in Britain for nearly a century. It founded York. It survived serious defeats, from Boudica, from the Caledonians under Agricola, and left real, dated physical traces, inscriptions, tiles, gravestones, altars. The last solid evidence is the York plaque, from 107 to 108 Anno Domini. After that, the silence is total in the records that survived time. What remains open is everything that comes after that plaque. Hodgson bets on Britain. Burleigh bet on the East. Neither has irrefutable proof. And it is that honesty, that recognition that the mystery is real, that separates serious historical debate from popular narrative, which sometimes prefers the Scottish fog. Over admitting it simply does not know the answer. But perhaps the most revealing thing is not where the 9th died. It is how it died. Wherever that was. It probably was not one epic night. The 9th was consumed, battle by battle, campaign by campaign, frontier by frontier, until Rome found it easier to bring in a new legion than to explain what was left of the old one. As one specialist put it, with a precision that needs no drama, they were fighting and dying trying to hold the empire together. And when they became too few to replace, it was simpler to absorb whoever was left into other units and bring another legion in their place. The mystery of the 9th is not about magic or Scottish fog. It is about what happens when a vast empire treats its soldiers like chess pieces, moving them from frontier to frontier until there are no pieces left. The bones of these men may be in Scotland, on the Rhine, or beneath the sands of the Middle East. But what is certain is this: they marched, they fought, but perhaps the most revealing thing is not where the 9th died, it is how it died. Wherever that was. It probably was not one epic night. The 9th was consumed, battle by battle, campaign by campaign, frontier by frontier, until Rome found it easier to bring in a new legion than to explain what was left of the old one. As one specialist put it, with a precision that needs no drama, they were fighting and dying, trying to hold the empire together, and when they became too few to replace, it was simpler to absorb whoever was left into other units and bring another legion in their place. The mystery of the 9th is not about magic or Scottish fog. It is about what happens when a vast empire treats its soldiers like chess pieces, moving them from frontier to frontier until there are no pieces left. The bones of these men may be in Scotland, on the Rhine, or beneath the sands of the Middle East. But what is certain is this: they marched, they fought, and they disappeared, in service of a state that, in the end, found it more convenient to erase their name than to explain what it had done with them. And that, more than any epic battle, is perhaps the most Roman part of this entire story. Which of these three theories makes the most sense to you? Leave it in the comments. Which theory do you choose? A. Destroyed in Britain. B. Death in the East. C. Erased by Rome. Comment the letter plus the argument that convinced you. Save this video. This debate has no definitive answer yet.